I thought to tell about you and the work that you are doing to my audience.
Yeah, super easy.
So,
So how do I pronounce your name correctly? Is it Sai Charan or is it
yeah, you can call me Sai.
Sai? Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So, before telling about you and the work that you are doing to my audience, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm Ivar Østhus. I am the CTO of a small company called Unleash. Unleash is kind of my side project that involved or evolved into becoming this company. Previously, in the past, I've been working as a developer for many years, also an architect. So I'm well versed in kind of the technology space.
So, Unleash is your own company.
Yes, so Unleash is a company I founded. So it started out as an open source project. So I was working as a developer. I had this need. I needed something to help me work more efficient with software. So I created this project called Unleash. And I kept it as a side on the side just because it was a fun project. But at some point in time, people started using it. A lot of companies started using it, and I got the opportunity to create a company around the open source project and do it full time. So that was super exciting.
You are already doing development work and you're doing great in it. Why you wanted to start this and what made you to start?
It was kind of intriguing, kind of, you had this opportunity suddenly that something that was just a hobby, something you created yourself. There was a huge interest in other companies in using this product, but also willingness to pay for it. And I felt like this opportunity was so great because I would be allowed to, not only was it my baby, but also the ability to start a company on your own where you can set the rules, you can decide the structures and how we should collaborate together. It's a unique opportunity and you don't get that very often in life. So I felt like I just had to grab that opportunity when it kind of came to me.
And Unleash is about.
Unleash is a feature management tool. So it's about feature flagging. So it's a tool that allows you to protect features you're building in a product and in code so that you can control who get access to that functionality. And the purpose is obviously so that you can start integrating an early version of a new feature or capability you're building into production. You can start testing it early before it's even finished. And again, that's about speed. It's about learning because then you can obviously showing the code, showing it to your stakeholders early before it's finished allows you to get immediate feedback. Are we building the right thing? And you can also start testing on real users in production, but you don't have to test on everyone. You can test on maybe just 1% of your users so that you can reduce the risk and increase the learning. And you can then do more iterative software development instead of building everything, testing everything, ship it after a month or two, and then suddenly it doesn't work. That's a very shitty place to be.
And where it can be used and which businesses can be used.
So all businesses building software can use this tool. We provide integrations for all the popular programming languages. We have more than 12 official SDKs that you can use so that it's easy to use inside of your application. But obviously it's more interesting for larger software departments when you have multiple teams and the risk of doing errors is bigger. Than a tool like Unleash is more helpful than if it's a very small team. Then obviously you can also use Unleash and then often you use the open source version, but kind of the value for large enterprises is even bigger.
So how many companies are using it? How many individuals are using it?
Yeah, so we are tracking many thousand companies around the world using the Unleash open source. And obviously we know a lot of the really large services around the globe are using Unleash to control how they roll out software. So it means that every day uh, uh, almost all users in Europe and America will at some point during a week hit a service that will actually use a Unleash product to protect kind of the rollout of their features. So you wouldn't know it, so it would be kind of on the infra layer. You wouldn't see it as an end user, but we know that there is a lot of services that most users use that already uses Unleash. So that's super interesting to the fact there.
So what is that idea made you to create this?
So to me, it's coming back to, I'm very interested in how can we work efficiently with software. So I was working at a company. We had automated our release process. We have this pipeline, and we could in theory deploy a new version of the code to production whenever we wanted on demand. And we were very ambitious on my team. We wanted to ship new features every week, kind of have a weekly sprint and ship every Friday. The problem is that it often takes some time to build a new feature. It takes more than a week, even with great developers on the team, because it's complicated. It's a lot to do. It's really hard to get right the first time. And what I saw is that we weren't able to ship every week, and this bugged me a lot because it was less efficient. We started having feature branches. We needed to manage kind of the merge conflicts between feature branches, and to me, that was kind of bad because we were postponing the learning opportunities because we didn't know if it were going to work before it was actually deployed to production, running in production, hitting real users and hitting real traffic. So this was kind of this was the idea that we need to be more efficient. We should reduce kind of the delay from we create something until we test that it actually works. And ideally, we should actually be able to write a piece of software before lunch, have it deployed to production, eat lunch, and then go and test it in production without impacting users and look at the logs and see that everything works so that you can go home that day knowing that that small piece of code you wrote this day is solid, it is working, it's not a complete feature, but then you can focus on the next thing. And that was kind of my philosophy. That is how you should work with software.
And what is the advantages of using Unleash?
So the big advantage is obviously you are reducing complexity. You're taking away a lot of the need to have very complicated internal tests mechanisms to test all different versions of the code. You are enabling collaboration between developers because suddenly multiple developers can work on the same feature. They can integrate parts that is not complete into the source code, and they can collaborate on the various parts, use Unleash to protect that feature so it's not exposed to end users before it's finished. So you're enabling collaboration and you are reducing risk because you can test the feature early in production without impacting end users. And you're basically also taking away a lot of the kind of the stress that is involved with software development, because if it's a long time from you build something until you're able to validate it, you've probably done a lot of other things in that time period. So you're not remembering exact all the details. But if that time period is very short and you're able to ship very small parts in isolation, deploy those to production, test those in isolation in production, you know exactly what you did. So it's much easier to know if something goes wrong, why it went wrong, what is wrong. And also you're taking away the element of stress, like if you are doing large releases in a very infrequent manner, there is so much going into that change set that you don't necessarily know what changed. So it's really hard to pinpoint what went wrong when it's not working. And that puts a lot of stress on developers, in my opinion.
So you started with a open source project. And what made people to connect with this and use this?
Yeah, I think it was solving a problem that many people had. And yeah, I don't think it was never planned out to be like that. It was more like it just happened type of thing. Like I built it because it was useful for me and the company I was working for. I think people saw that it was also useful for them and it kind of solved a problem that was important to them. So they adopted Unleash. They started contributing back to Unleash, and kind of that is kind of to me how open source works. It's obviously a very slow process in the beginning, because in the beginning nobody knows about an open source project. It's not enough to just put it on GitHub. But over time, more and more people will discover it. They will tell their friends, they will tell their colleagues, and at some point you will start to accelerate. And that was what's happening with Unleash, that at some point it started accelerating. A lot of people got aware of the project. And suddenly companies started reaching out because they wanted support, they wanted it hosted, they wanted enterprise features. And suddenly there was kind of this, you already had validated, and this is what's fantastic with open source, is that it's an easy way to validate product market fit. You already know that you're building something of value. And the next step then is just to understand how can we commercialize on that value.
So how it reached many people?
By word of mouth, to be honest. We didn't do any marketing or anything like that for many years. Now, it's just recently that we onboarded our first head of marketing, and that's part of the commercial interest, obviously. But it was just by word of mouth, developers talking to each other and sharing ideas. So it was just that we happened to be, or I happened to create this early enough to make it relevant in the right time, that a lot of people started exploring these type of solutions.
And what is the best feedback that you got and that you cannot forget? And who without mentioning the name or the company, and you can tell who they are.
Yeah, so the best feedback, I think there is a lot of examples, but what is very important to me and our company and the developers behind Unleash is we don't want to just build a feature. We don't want to understand why are we building this feature, which problems are we trying to solve. And we have some very good examples in the past, working closely with some of our strategic customers, where we are able to sit down to them, and we're not just talking about what we need to build. That's part of it. That's the solution space. But they are actually inviting us to, like, yes, so we have this problem that we need to solve. This is important to us. It could be, and one example is that they need to follow some policies because of the industry they are in. So they need to document changes in a very certain way, in a very specific way, to be compliant with that policy. That is kind of, it's something they have to do. And instead of talking about, okay, so how can we build that? We talked about, so what are the requirements? What are the specifics around that? How can we facilitate that and really understand the need? And then we go back and we figure out a good solution. We start building that. We are involving the customer in that process. But it's so much better for us to really, really understand the problem they're having, the need they're trying to solve, instead of we also have customers trying to come to us and also users of Unleash that, yeah, I want Unleash to do X. Okay, why? Why should it do X? It's like, it doesn't help us much because it's a solution, but we need to understand the problem you're trying to solve. And it might be that there is 10 other solutions that is better for that problem than this solution here. And just to give you an example, we were talking to someone and they told us, yeah, so do you support GitHub Actions? Yeah, we have an API, we have SDKs, we might support GitHub Actions. But what do you want to do in that GitHub Actions? That's much more interesting than a yes/no question if we support GitHub Actions, because that doesn't solve anything in itself, right? And so that's an example of a very bad feedback, at least.
And what about security in Unleash?
Yeah, so Unleash, that's multiple factors, obviously. So you have obviously the Unleash open source. We are scanning all the code. We are scanning all the dependencies, all of that, all automated, obviously. And we also have the security consultants helping us looking into vulnerabilities. Then you have the cloud offering where we host it for customers. So we are SOC 2 compliant, and doing our best to follow all best practices and have all of that documented and audited by a third party. So that's the two parts. And obviously you also have Unleash Enterprise self-hosted. It will be much of the same things we do as with the open source, but we also have the extra capabilities of the enterprise, and obviously we also security scan those parts.
So how many are working on it?
Yeah, so we are 28 people in the company working with Unleash. Out of that, we are roughly around 13 in the product team working only building and extending Unleash with new capabilities.
So everybody are from Norway.
No, we are very distributed. So we started the company during COVID. So it's by design remote first. Even the people in Norway that joined early on in the beginning, I even some of them I never met kind of the first few months, even though we were living like 10 minutes away from each other. But we have employees all over the world. The product team is mostly in Europe. We have one person in South Africa, same time zone, so it's easy to collaborate. And then we have a sales department in the US.
So you started it as a open source project. Now it became useful for different companies. So how you are feeling, and what do you think that worked for everybody to use it?
I hope it's providing value and it's easy to use. That's at least our intention. And we love the fact that a lot of people and companies are using the open source. It's a big foundation for what we are. They're also providing a lot of feedback. It also helps us with the stability of Unleash, because they are all self-hosting and they're providing feedback on that if something is not working in a very particular environment or stuff like that. So for us, it's just a fantastic opportunity. And we also see that a lot of the customers we do get on the enterprise offering is actually companies who have been exploring the open source. Many of them have actually used the open source for a few years before they reach out and say, yeah, so we use your product for a while and it's actually super good and it's super helpful to us. So we see that you have these enterprise capabilities that will be very useful for us. So we would like to enter an commercial collaboration with you guys.
So when you're listening to the feedback that people are giving, and after starting the company, so with this feedback, how you improved yourself?
I improve myself. That's a good thing. Uh, it's a tough question because you all, at least I think like I'm a very humble person. I don't take much pride in anything. I hope that's what people also think of me. I always think that we can improve in many ways, and that's a continuous thing for me and has always been. And I think that has been very important to me, but it has been a learning curve, is how to efficiently collaborate and talk both with the community, but also with employees remotely in an efficient way. huge challenge. I think a lot of people have experienced this during COVID and everyone forced to work from home and everything. But it's really important and it's really hard because it's very, very easy to come out as a bit harsh or offensive in a written format. While intention was not like that at all, but it's very easy to have these small confusions. And particularly also because you're writing in English. English is not my first language. English is not the first language as most of the people we engage with. And it means that it's very easy to have these small misunderstandings. And I'm trying very hard to improve on this to have a very open, inclusive written language. And I don't think it's easy, but I think it's important.
And you are product officer. Actually, you started working on the product, understanding the mechanism of the product and understanding how the health of the product before. And now you become the businessman. So how you call this difference in you?
Good question. So I've always been very, it's always been very important to me to be very close to the product. And still in this role as a founder of this company, I'm still writing code. I'm still working very close with the developers and all of that because it's my baby basically, but also it's important. I think it's one thing is obviously to build the company, and that's important too. But I think kind of if I don't understand, if I'm not sitting together with the team, really understanding the challenges, it will be very hard for me, at least as the type of person I am, to take the product to the next level and the company to the next level. So it's a balancing act for sure, because you also need to use some time thinking more strategically, thinking more long term. There is other aspects like how to be a good manager, how to treat people well, how to talk to investors, all of this. So there is a lot of other things you also have to make room for in your day. But to me, at least, I'm a very hands-on type of person, and I will never let go of that hands-on part. I might reduce it over time, but I still want to write some code every week.
So you created Unleash uh, uh, because you just want to create and to tell the world to put yourself out, or you created it for a strong intention that you want to solve some problems in the world.
Yeah, good question. So for me, I never envisioned that there could be a company around this. I never envisioned that a lot of companies would actually use this in production. That was a nice side effect. I had never done open source at its scale before. So it was more an accident, I would say, than a planned thing. To me, kind of why did I solve this was I saw that this was a problem that at least at the time in 2014, when I started exploring the solution for this, there were not any good open source alternatives that solve this problem in the way I wanted to solve the problem. So I decided that, okay, maybe I should explore if I can create that solution. My intention to make it open source was more in terms of making it easier for other teams in the company I was working for to adopt the tool. Because if I created it open source, it meant that I had to think very carefully on the dependencies. I needed to be kind of not very tied into very specific company libraries and stuff like that. So that was more like an intention to make it easier for other teams in the company to adopt it. And a happy side effect was obviously that a lot of external companies also started adopting it.
So now you're listening to the people what they are saying about what you created. So what do you feel? What is your feeling? Because your intention is not this. but you actually solved a lot of problems of a lot of companies or a lot of individuals. So it is a side effect. But listening to them as a product officer, what you are doing on the product.
No, I think it's just fantastic, and obviously there is a lot of good feedback. Sometimes there are feedback on what we should improve, and we treat this very carefully. So we have a very easy process for us to collect kind of enhancements requests and obviously bugs. I hate bugs, so those we just fix immediately, but they happen sometimes, unfortunately. But I think it's just making me kind of super proud to some extent, to be a bit blunt, and I think that's good. I think it's super fantastic that a lot of companies can get this amount of value even from the open source. That's just fantastic. That means that I've created something that that companies and people find useful. And I'm just grateful to have that opportunity. And obviously, it's also good that it's possible to commercialize on top of this, that we have figured out a way to do that in a nice manner, I think, because that is also allowing me to grow the open source. So we are investing a lot. I would say almost 80% of what we build is also provided to the open source. So we are it allows us to make the open source better because we have some customers paying us for the extra features you get in the enterprise version.
So as a software developer, what kind of problems that you have solved which made you to make the product today that you're working on better?
Could you repeat that question? Sorry.
So as a software developer that you spent a lot of time of your life working on different products, what kind of products as a software developer, what kind of a development types that you did which are helping you to make today's product better?
Good question. I think it's a lot of small things that you pick up over time. I don't think it's kind of one thing. I think something around just how you build software and the cautiousness around having tests, having good tests that actually provides value. It has been at least a technique I picked up previously that is super important now, that so that every time we do enhancement and improvements, we're not breaking stuff and breaking existing functionality. This is super important to me. The other thing is obviously maybe not directly inspired from other products, but it's about how you think about the architecture, how you think about different needs and the separation of concerns. An example of that is we have a set change the configuration in Unleash or work with the feature flags. And this has proven to be a very valuable design decision. It was made very early. It was something that I picked up from other projects I built in the past to have this type of separation. In the beginning, it felt like it almost didn't make sense. But now we have utilized this heavily because it has allowed us to build a lot of advanced capabilities into Unleash without breaking the integration with existing SDKs. So it has proven to be very valuable over time.
So your engineering knowledge is solving the business problems today.
Yeah, I think so. And remember, we are building a developer tool for developers. So having a strong engineering background kind of helps. And we
So
are very lucky, so because we have the core stakeholders on the team, like the developers on the team building the product. They're also using the product to build the product.
So when you're talking with the business owners, and how are they themselves are developers like you?
So so you're talking about when we are selling the Unleash product?
Yeah.
Yes. No, it varies a lot. So some are and some are not. I think we are a very technical product today, and we are very close to the developers. So often the business owner or the stakeholder would have somewhat of an engineering background, but not always. Sometimes you also talk to product. Product is also very closely related, I guess. So yeah, but I think me myself, I speak better with kind of people with very strong technical background, I guess.
So listening to the developers uh, from different countries about your product, how it feels and what they are saying about it.
No, my impression is that they are very happy with it. I think there is a couple of things that stands out. We have improved the UX quite a lot over the last year, and we are getting a lot of great feedback on that effort, that it's very clean, it's very kind of focused. And the other thing that we get a lot of feedback on is the speed, kind of that, how efficient everything is in terms of performance. That is also sticking out to me as great feedback from developers.
And you want to scale up this?
Obviously. So, in my opinion, Unleash should run everywhere, all over. Every company in the world should use Unleash when building software. That's the responsible thing to do, in my opinion.
So to make that possible, what problems that you're going to solve and what problems that are already there that you're observing that can solve with the Unleash?
Yeah, so what we are doubling down on now, and we believe in, so obviously we want to help organization improve how they build software. That's kind of our key mission, and to me, kind of a tool like Unleash is helping organization uh, collaborate better on how they build software. So what we are investing now in, and the features we are building now, is to make it easier to collaborate inside of the Unleash tool itself, because that's the whole purpose of using Unleash, is to make it easier to collaborate both between the developers on the team, but also with other stakeholders in the company, so that you can involve other stakeholders. They can have transparency into what you're building, what is the stage of what you're building, and even you can start allowing your external stakeholders. It could be a business owner, it could be a product owner, it could be UX, it could be a tester, and allow them to test that feature you're building early on, and again allow them to provide feedback. And we have a lot of interesting plans on how we will make it even easier to collaborate inside of the Unleash tool. And obviously we also want to collaborate better. So everything you do in Unleash is, obviously we have an API for everything, but we also want to make it easier to integrate with other developer tools. And that is also part of the collaboration space in my head, is that we know that developers are using different tools for different problems, but building software, it's very beneficial if these tools speaks well together, so it's easier to correlate why stuff happens.
So what do you say about the products that are being built in different countries and by different people? You're observing them as an entrepreneur. You will be seeing how they are built and how you are going to give them your product. Say that my product will connect and make your problem will be to solve your problem.
Yeah. So I think, obviously all entrepreneurs can obviously use the Unleash open source. They're free to use that. It's out there. They can download it and start using it. And it will allow you to take more control on how you release your changes in your own product. And I think that is very, very beneficial, at least when you start growing and having a lot of developers on the team. It tends to be very valuable also when you have a lot of customers and users, and you need to take down the risk of doing changes. Because if you're starting out a new product and you don't have users, you don't have customers, you don't have a lot of developers, you can just do a lot of changes all the time because nobody will notice. But when you have millions of users and you have 20s of teams working on that product, suddenly it's starting to be so complex that you need mechanisms on how you build software to make sure you're not doing stupid stuff and breaking stuff, because it starts to matter.
So have you ever thought that what made me to create a product which is flexible and which are connecting to many people and solve their problems?
Can you repeat that question? Sorry.
Your product is flexible to use.
Yes.
So what made you to create it?
Good. It's back to kind of my own needs. I just wanted to have something I could use myself as a developer, and forcing me to do it open source also forced me to think about how can we make it flexible so that it will work in different contexts. And also this is also something that kind of evolves over the years. Being in an open source product that people start consuming, they will try to run it on a different type of architecture with different constraints, and when it doesn't work for them, they will provide feedback like, yeah, it's not running on this type of server. Can we please work on making it work? And they will often contribute that back to you and help you kind of make sure that it also works there. So with time, you kind of get more flexibility in terms of where and how you can use the product.
So about Unleash, in simple words, so what do you say to the people who are watching and listening to you?
Unleash in simple words. So Unleash is a very simple tool that would allow you to improve how you build software.
So what is your next plan after this?
And my next plan. Now, at first, I need to get the world domination for Unleash, but obviously, I think there is. I will not share the concrete plans, but there is interesting problems that is in the developer ecosystem that is close to what we do with Unleash that I think there is not a good solution for yet. So there are some other things that is very close to the Unleash problem that might be interesting to start looking into, but I will not tell you exactly what that is because I haven't fully thought out the idea yet.
So I'll put your web links in the description of this video on YouTube. People who finds our video on YouTube can see your tool and can see how it will be useful for their product and their business. And I'm sure after this you will reach more countries in the world.
Perfect. Thank you.
So and also I'll put the link on the screen as well. They can see it and the entire video. Can you spell it to my podcast listeners?
So I so the Twitter handle or
The product.
yeah, Unleash. So UNL. It's hard to do it in English, you know. I need to cheat. Sorry. It's just in my English. UNLEASH. Unleash.
So what made you to put this name?
That's a good question. So I was kind of debating a bit back and forth, but it's about kind of unleash your software to the wild type of thing, like unleash the dog, right? So it's more like unleash the software, and that's kind of the thought behind it.
So do you think that name is also a big thing that made you to reach?
I think the name is fitting for what the product does, to
Okay,
be honest, and it kind of resonates.
awesome. So at last, as a business owner, as a product builder, as a person who is into technology, what is your observation about my work? Have you seen any videos of mine on YouTube?
Yeah, I haven't actually seen much before you reached out, but I think it's a very interesting thing that you do, that you reach out to developers and entrepreneurs all over the world and connecting the world. And my reflection was, I just watched a few videos that you had, and my reflection is that this is super fantastic, and it kind of proves something that we all probably know, but it kind of proves that we are quite equal, actually. We think that me sitting here in Norway and everyone over there is super different, but actually we are not. We are building on the same knowledge. We are usually, people are quite nice in all parts of the world. And it's just fantastic to see you do this and connecting the world and just proving that we are not that different after all.
So I did masters in software engineering and also bachelor's in computer science and engineering. Right now I'm getting trained as a DevOps engineer. So my developers also are going to watch this video as well
Super
and
nice.
see about Unleash. So doing this as a professional thing and also connecting with experts like you who already solved the problem, who worked on technology for a long time, who worked on different projects, talking with experts like you around the globe, what I'm going to learn and how I'm going to use this knowledge in coming days if I work in IT.
That's fantastic.
How this knowledge, talking with experts like you, is going to be helpful for me if I work in IT in coming days.
I think it because there is one thing to read about something in a book, and then they have the opportunity to talk to others. It kind of brings more context into the knowledge, and because if you read a really good book, it will often be quite, or sometimes it will feel like very black and white. This is the way to do it, right? But then there are all these nuances, like the real world type of nuances. So talking to experts all over the world will give you more context often, and more kind of the things to be aware of, the things you should know, or kind of different perspectives of that knowledge. But I also think there is an additional component, and that's actually doing it. And doing it is not the same as reading or hearing about something. And to me, that's the third part of a learning journey. And the last part is obviously to teach others. And then, because you can do it, you can kind of understand it and make it work. But the next level of learning is, can you explain it to someone else that doesn't know it from before? And that's kind of when you reach the highest top of the learning curve in my head.
Awesome. And one last question is, what is easy for you, talking with computer or talking with human beings?
I think something in the middle, if that's possible to answer. So I think I resonate better with people who also understand computers. Yeah, I think I'm probably leaning more towards humans than computers, to be honest.
Awesome. Thank you again, Ivar, for giving me opportunity and letting me ask some questions and telling about your product to my audience.
Yeah, it was super nice chatting with you, Sai. It was a pleasure.
So, can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Yes,
And also, can I put this audio and video clip on my podcast, website, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission?
absolutely.
Thank you. Keep going. Keep solving more problems.
I will.
Thanks.
Okay,
Bye.
take care.